Hey everyone, welcome to Drive-By Reviews, where today we're taking a look at the Canon 80D. Now this DSLR came out from Canon early 2016, and since then there have been other competing options that have come out at a similar price range that really kind of give the specs on the 80D a run for its money. However, it's still known ever since then as a fantastic option for vloggers and YouTubers due to its fantastic autofocusing system and of course the articulating display that goes every which way for someone to use if they're being their own cameraman, which is pretty common for a lot of YouTubers out there. Of course, it's also fantastic for photography as well, but the real question is this the Canon for you based on its specs and how it performs out in the field? Let's dive right in and take a look at the details of the Canon 80D. Here we go. Boom, here's the Canon 80D at its basic specs, all right? It's got a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. Its ISO ranges from 100 to 16,000 and it expands up to 25,600. It utilizes the Canon EF/EFS mount system. And of course, it's got that 3-inch fully articulating display to allow you to really utilize this camera in many different ways, whether you're going to be on the street trying to view from an angle or you want to be your own photographer right here. It's also got an optical pentaprism viewfinder. It can shoot up to 7 frames per second with continuous shooting, which is pretty phenomenal. It can shoot up to 1920 by 1080 video resolution, has built-in wireless for easy transfer between the camera and your computer systems, and it also has, of course, that weather-sealed body, which comes in really handy for the nature photographers out there. And all in all, the body weighs 730 grams, making it easy to utilize with one hand if necessary. And it's got that nice, DSLR size with 139 millimeters by 105 millimeters and then 79 millimeters deep on the body itself. Now for me, out of those specs, the main limitations I see there for this particular price range, where they're still asking for about $1,500 for a kit where it has 2 lenses and the body coming with it, I'm just surprised that the ISO range is relatively small. There are similarly priced competing options out there that go up to 52,000 or more. And so that being the case, this isn't going to perform as well in low light ISO settings. And of course, it still gets beat in color depth by some other cheaper, older options like the Sony a6000. However, those 45 cross-type focus points work phenomenally well when you're in autofocus mode. In fact, let's check that out right now. Here we are in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, of course, right now surrounded by 3 major fires. So I don't know if you can tell, but we've got a pretty hazy backdrop. And I think it's hazardous right now. It's hazardous to the health. It reached over the 400 level or whatever the hazardous air quality measures they use around here over in the city next door. So I'm spending small snippets outdoors. But in the meantime, this is a great example of how the autofocus system works on the 80D. So right now I have it on face tracking and I've got the articulating display facing me so I can see it perfectly tracking right on my schnoz. And as you can see here, if I go right close and it kind of tracks right onto my hand looking for a face, it comes right back to the face almost immediately. Very snappy autofocusing system, which is just essential if you're going to be your own cameraman and making content. It's very similar to this, where you get the face on you or on a subject and you just don't have time to manually focus it, or you just can't manually focus it and create the content at the same time. And that's why this is so popular of a camera. But the question remains, yes, it's an amazing video camera as far as this type of content creation, but with its specs being outdone by similar options now on the market today, how does it perform with photos? Well, let's take a look at the photos the 80D can create with the kit lens and the zoom lens that came with it in my package. Here we go. It's plain to see the 80D holds its own with photography, but let's get into the details of performance for just a moment. With the kit lens, barrel distortion is a significant issue, and it's virtually just as bad when shooting RAW or JPEG, but at least there wasn't any pincushion distortion when zoomed all the way on the kit lens. As for the performance of the 80D throughout its aperture range, let's take a look at this very nice textured brick wall. I put on the 55 to 250mm zoom lens that came with the kit for this test, and this first photo is shot in aperture priority at f8, an ideal setting for sharpness. Taking a look at this image, we can see the best the 80D has to offer using this particular lens with ample lighting and image stabilization active on the lens. Next shot was taken at f4 with the ISO at 100, and we see some nice dynamic range between the black windows and white grouting. Zoomed in, it's slightly less sharp than what we saw at f8, although I don't find it noticeable when viewing at original composition on either photo. Last shot was taken at f22, and although it's a setting I rarely use in practice, it's important to see how the camera and lens handle different challenges. So in this case, you can see the ISO setting had to make up for the small amount of light coming through the aperture setting. Zoomed in, we can see how detrimental this is to the final product, as the edges have gone quite soft and really detract from the contrast that makes the brick wall an interesting texture to photograph in the first place. Now, I will say it was quite the experience jumping from a Sony a6000 to a Nikon D7500 and then now over to a Canon 80D. And the Canon really kind of operates very similar to the Nikon, and I was a little disheartened that it was actually true to the specifications that the Nikon outperforms this when it comes to photography, just a bit with its specs and also out in true performance. But as a video camera and as a vlogging camera, it's far superior to both the a6000 and the Nikon, just simply because the articulating display and autofocus is really designed for it. Now, I am curious what's going to happen when I jump over and try comparing this to the a6000 speed and even maybe an a6300 speed on autofocus. Because this is fast, but I don't think it's as fast as the Sony's capabilities. But honestly, it's functionally fast. It's just as fast as you're going to need for autofocusing purposes when it comes to using that display on yourself or whatever you're going to do when you need to autofocus. And of course, if you're the photographer, manual focus is where you're going to go anyways. On just a usability note, I really did like the touchscreen. Very functional, very easy menus to navigate and understand. If you don't, it's easy to take a look either at the manual or tutorial videos out there, or tutorial articles out there to figure out how to do various things like time lapses or whatever you want to change in the camera to really make this your own device that you're comfortable with, whether it's back button autofocus or other tricks you want to utilize to make yourself a more functional and fast photographer and videographer. And at the end of the day, this is a great tool to do that. Now, I think if you're a Canon user already and a lover and you have the 70D, you're going to kind of wonder why they're charging you so much more for the 80D when they're not giving you 4K, which is one of the two hits I'm going to give against this camera. Everything else is wonderful and beautiful. I love it. It kind of grows on you the more you use it. But 4K video, it doesn't really make sense why with this generation, when they could have, they did not put 4K in there unless you're just trying to push you to the next level. But again, competing cameras at the same price level already have 4K at this point. Not only that, the ISO range and just its capabilities in low light actually get beat by older camera models out there, like the Sony a6000. And that being the case, it just kind of doesn't make sense why they would do that to something that has so many lens options out there with the EF/EF-S lens compatibility. Now, that being the case, it really kind of tempts me to go up the next level, whether it's with a Sony, maybe a Canon, and maybe even a Panasonic. I'm really taking a look right now at the GH5. I'm tempted to touch that. Of course, that's at a different level entirely than the 80D. But this is great for what it is, and so I'm going to keep utilizing it for some videos. I'm going to probably test it out against the a6000 for now. I think it should beat it in a lot of ways, but the autofocus speed, I'm not sure. We'll find out. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to let me know what you think about this camera. If you're interested in the 80D for yourself, I'll post some links down below so you can check it out. Don't forget to like and comment and let me know what you think about the 80D and other camera gear out there. And I'll see you guys next time on the next Drive-By Reviews.